Rutabagas are a versatile ingredient. Despite that, they are very uncommon, as only 11 million pounds were sold in 2016 according to the Produce Market Guide. Today we will be making rutabaga spice cake. The first step is always to check the oven to make sure it's clean before turning it on to preheat at 350 degrees. The first main step is to peel the rutabagas, as the outside layer is not good to eat and has some damages on it. Rutabagas are a hybrid of turnips and wild cabbages, which most likely originated in Bohemia in the 17th century, according to the Alternative Field Crops Manual. They are most common in Northern Europe due to their ability to handle cold weather, and actually even becoming sweeter when they're in the ground during the cold temperatures. The recipe I will be making today is from The Culinary Cure by Kristen Coffield. With the rutabaga peeled, it's now time to move on to the next step of grating it. It says you don't need to grate it too finely, but there's not a lot of ways to grate it other than with a regular grater. And it's time-consuming process. If you're going to grate a whole rutabaga, I would suggest a half a rutabaga, as you don't need a whole one to make this dish. With that done, you're going to set the grated rutabaga to the side and move on to the dry ingredients. Begin with 2.5 cups of flour, before adding in half a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of allspice, and half a teaspoon of salt. The cinnamon and allspice are the main ingredients of this dish, along with the rutabaga. The simple dry ingredients done, set those to the side and begin with the wet ingredients. And 3 eggs. You add 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar to that, along with half a cup of plain yogurt, half a cup of butter. You want to get as soft as possible so it's easy to mix, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. All those done, you just mix it up once again till it's as smooth as possible. It will look a little bit differently depending on the softness of the butter when you mix it. The simplicity of this dish makes it easy to switch out different ingredients and make slight changes to the recipe. With all the wet ingredients mixed together well, you add the 1 cup of rutabaga and mix that in as well. With the rutabaga mixed in, you can add the dry ingredients and begin finishing up the process. With everything mixed together and the oven being preheated, you put the batter in a 9-inch loaf pan. A little bit of a jiggle to make sure you don't have evenness across the loaf when you bake it. Now it goes into the oven and is there for about 30 to 40 minutes. It depends on the oven and depends on each batch you make. So for all the batches I made, it took a different amount of time. With the cake in the oven, you'll have some time to relax, but there's one little small thing you'll need to do, is make the icing. You can use any little simple icing. I would not do something that's too flavorful. This one is powdered sugar, milk, vanilla, and fresh lemon juice. And then you mix that all together and you'll end up drizzling that over the cake when it's done. Now let's take a peek at the cake. Looks like it could be done on the top. We'll use a knife to check to see how well the insides are and take a peek at it. Not ready yet. It's close though. And then we put it back in and get back to mixing the icing. With that being now mixed, the cake is ready. It sits on the stove for a second to cool off a little bit before being put on the table and out of the loaf pan. The brownness of it is beautiful. As I flip it over so I can cut it and drizzle the icing on top, one last fun fact about rutabagas. They actually were originally mainly used for livestock feed due to their high nutrient contents. And then humans thought it would be good for them if they had the same nutrients. With that, the icing will get drizzled on top and it will be cut. It will still be soft, but it will still hold together really well and just be a nice warm loaf of deliciousness.